Hey everyone. So, if you're gearing up for that 2026 PMP exam, there is one principle that has, well, completely become the new center of gravity. I'm talking about principle number 9, navigating complexity. It's this recognition that projects, they just aren't neat little checklists anymore. They're messy, they're interconnected, and they are super unpredictable. And let me tell you, mastering this isn't just about passing the exam. It's absolutely crucial for leading projects in the real world today. So, how are we going to get our arms around this beast? Well, first, we're going to get crystal clear on what complexity actually is. Then, I'm going to show you a really powerful framework that kind of acts like a GPS for this uncertain terrain. From there, we'll turn all that theory into a practical playbook you can start using tomorrow. And then, we'll zero in on the exam itself, cracking the code on how you can absolutely nail these questions. Finally, we'll boil it all down to one core idea that's going to change how you see your projects forever.
All right, let's dive in and start right at the beginning. Before we can even think about navigating complexity, we have to agree on what it is, and maybe more importantly, why it has become the central challenge for every modern project manager out there.
So the official mandate from PMI sounds beautifully simple, right? Navigate complexity. But please, don't let that simplicity fool you. This is a radical shift in thinking. It's basically saying that our job isn't to pretend we can create a perfect straight-line plan anymore. The reality is messy, and cause and effect are all tangled up. You know, the goal isn't to tame the storm, it's to become a better sailor. It's all about learning to navigate the chaos, not trying to eliminate it. And if you're sitting there wondering why this matters so much for your exam, well, look no further. A massive 26% of the questions fall under the business environment domain, and guess what? That is the home turf of complexity. You see, PMI now views projects as complex adaptive systems. It's a fancy term, but all it really means is that they're not just to-do lists, they're living, breathing things. The exam is going to test your ability to handle ambiguity and all those unpredictable ripple effects. Getting this right proves you're thinking like a modern project leader. Okay, this slide right here. This might just be the most important concept in this entire explainer. It's the huge difference between something being complicated versus complex. Think of those gears you see on the left. That's complicated. It might be really hard, sure, but it's predictable. An expert can take it apart, figure it out, and put it back together. Now look at that network on the right. That is complex. It's a web of interactions where you just can't predict what's going to happen next. You have to poke it and see how it reacts. The PMP exam is designed to find out if you know how to manage the system on the right. Okay, so for dealing with that unpredictable network, we're going to need the right tools, right? We can't just use a simple blueprint. We need a map and a compass. And that's exactly what this next section is. It's your strategic toolkit for seeing, understanding, and acting when things get complex. And here it is, our navigation tool, the 6-node framework. Let's just walk through it real quick. It all starts with recognition. That's just acknowledging, hey, we're in complex territory here. From there, you assess ambiguity to figure out what you know versus what you don't. Then you get really strategic. You decouple things to stop a domino effect, and you use a probe sense respond loop to learn as you go. As you do that, you've got to monitor for emergence, watching for those unexpected patterns to pop up. And all of this leads to the ultimate goal, building adaptation and resilience right into the DNA of the project. Let's zoom in on what I really think is the engine of this whole framework. Node 4. The probe sense respond loop. Now, this is the complete opposite of traditional old school planning. In a complex system, you can't just think your way to the right answer. You have to act your way to it. So you probe by running these small, safe-to-fail experiments. You sense by carefully observing what happens. And then you respond by adapting your approach based on that real-world feedback. It's a nonstop loop of learning, not just mindlessly executing a static plan. Now for another absolutely crucial strategy, decoupling. Look on the left, you've got a highly coupled system. It's a classic domino setup. One tiny failure can trigger a catastrophic chain reaction that brings everything down. So what's the solution? Well, as you can see on the right, you intentionally build blast walls. You decouple critical parts of the project so that if one area catches fire, the flames are contained, and the entire project doesn't go up in smoke. It's smart risk management. All right, theory is great, and frameworks are super useful, but what does this actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon when things are going sideways on your project? Let's translate this into a practical PM playbook. This is all about putting it into action. Here's your 5-step playbook. First, assess early. You have to make that complicated versus complex call right at the start because it literally determines everything that follows. Second, choose the path. If it's complex, don't try to force a rigid plan on it. Choose an iterative approach that actually lets you learn. Third, contain the blast. Actively look for those potential dominoes and build in those blast walls we just talked about. Fourth, leverage the network. Your team's diverse viewpoints are your best sensors, so use them. And finally, number 5, stay vigilant. Keep your eyes peeled for the unexpected, because in a complex system, the unexpected is pretty much guaranteed.
Okay, let's get to the bottom line. How do you turn all this knowledge into actual points on the PMP exam? This next section is your step-by-step guide to mastering any complexity question they can possibly throw at you. This slide, this is your secret weapon. Seriously, think of it as a radar for spotting the wrong answers, what the exam writers call distractors. The red flags are all the things a traditional project manager might do, like demanding rigid upfront planning or insisting on full clarity before acting. The green flags? That's the correct mindset. They're all about iteration, taking small actions to create clarity, leveraging stakeholders, and proactively adapting. You need to burn this table into your memory. And to make this even more concrete, think of this as your 4-step algorithm for any tough situational question on the exam. First, recognize that you're in a complexity scenario. Second, assess the key variables, what's uncertain, what's interconnected. Third, your default action should always lean towards some kind of iteration or probing. And fourth, the best answer will always involve adapting based on new information. Just follow these 4 steps, and you'll have a reliable path to the correct answer almost every time. So the key is to look for the code words. When you see terms like unprecedented, ambiguous, rapidly shifting, or high interdependency, your complexity radar should be going off like crazy. And here's the pro tip that will save you so much grief on the exam. In truly complex situations, the correct answer rarely, if ever, demands full upfront clarity. The best answer almost always involves iteration, prototyping, or engaging stakeholders to learn the way forward together. Okay, we've gone through the theory, the frameworks, and the exam tactics. But if you remember only one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this next point. This is the core philosophy. And here it is, the ultimate takeaway. Your job as a project leader isn't to eliminate complexity. It's not to pretend the world is simple and neat. Your job is to understand the messy reality you're in and to build a team and a project that can adapt and respond effectively to it. Success isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning how to thrive within it. This ability to adapt is the perfect lead-in to our next topic, principle number 10, optimizing risk responses, where we'll explore exactly how to handle the threats and opportunities that pop up from all this complexity. If this explainer helped you connect the dots, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of our 2026 PMP series. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Learning reinforcement.
Many modern projects lack a clear, linear path from initiation to completion. They operate as dynamic systems, where cause and effect are often decoupled. To address these environments, PMI established principle number 9, navigate complexity. This illustrates the distinction between 2 different operational environments. Complicated projects, on the left, are difficult but predictable. An expert can analyze the requirements and forecast the outcome. Complex adaptive systems, however, are volatile. Outcomes emerge from the continuous interactions of multiple elements, making long-term prediction mathematically unreliable. Traditional management relies on an analyze, plan, execute structure. When that rigid approach is applied to a complex system, the static plan inevitably shatters against reality. You cannot force a predictable framework onto an environment defined by feedback loops and nonlinear change. Recognizing this shift is an alignment with operational reality. The environment dictates the required management approach. An effective project manager adapts their strategy to the system's actual behavior. Failure often occurs when a project moves from merely complicated to truly complex without the manager noticing. On the PMP exam, failing to make this distinction leads to incorrect situational responses. This chart highlights the business environment domain. While it represents 8% of your final score, its influence on situational questions is significant, particularly regarding how projects interact with uncertain organizational landscapes. The exam evaluates your ability to maintain project alignment when variables are in flux. PMI uses this domain to verify that a candidate can make sound decisions despite high levels of ambiguity. The exam presents scenarios where standard predictive planning, like requesting a detailed schedule, is offered as a trap. These options look professional, but they are technically incorrect for complex contexts. By reverse engineering these questions, we can identify the specific environmental indicators that signal a complex state and determine the mathematically sound response for that environment. Mastering Principle 9 provides the diagnostic framework required to navigate the business environment domain with precision. Exam prompts embed specific variables that indicate complexity, such as shifting technical constraints, social dynamics among stakeholders, and interconnected effects where one change triggers an unexpected reaction elsewhere. The Cinefin framework diagnoses these variables. When a scenario features high uncertainty and heavy interdependencies, the project is in the complex quadrant. Operating here requires a prescribed sequence: probe, sense, and respond. You must interact with the system first. A probe is a small, contained experiment. In environments where cause and effect are only clear in hindsight, probing gathers empirical data on system reactions. This approach directly counters the instinct to demand more analysis. You do not resolve complexity through deeper study. You resolve it through active, iterative testing. Because a probe is a low-stakes test, it allows for small, informative failures. This provides necessary data to adjust the project's direction without exposing the entire budget to risk. The probe sense respond loop is a reliable heuristic for navigating unknown variables. It maps the terrain through action rather than assumptions. When dealing with high interdependency, the primary move is decoupling. This involves separating interconnected elements into modular groups. By isolating components, a failure in one area remains localized, stopping the cascade.
Once the system is modularized, the project manager maintains a state of emergence monitoring. In complex systems, new patterns and behaviors will materialize that were not part of the original plan. These are emergent properties of the system's interactions. The project team must remain resilient enough to adapt the plan to these emergent patterns. Attempting to force a system back into a plan that no longer matches reality leads to systemic failure. Decoupling contains downside risk, while emergence monitoring lets the manager utilize new information. Together, they turn uncertainty into a manageable project asset. This matrix outlines 4 common exam traps. These distractors appeal to managers who prefer rigid, predictive control, even when the context makes that impossible. The first distractor is applying predictive planning to a volatile environment. If a scenario is defined by unknown variables, demanding a detailed long-term schedule is technically incorrect. The second trap is attempting to resolve uncertainty through endless documentation. In a complex system, historical data cannot predict future interactions. The third trap is isolation. Attempting to solve a systemic problem within a silo, rather than leveraging the collective intelligence of a cross-functional team, ignores the social complexity of the project. The fourth trap is the refusal to adapt to emergence. This distractor suggests sticking to the original baseline even after the project environment has changed, which turns minor anomalies into major crises. These distractors are dangerous because they sound disciplined. However, discipline in project management means applying the correct methodology to the specific environment, not applying the same methodology to every environment. Identifying these traps allows you to isolate the options that actually address complexity through empirical action. This matrix represents the diagnostic sequence for situational questions. Step 1 is identifying environmental indicators. Scan the prompt for terms indicating a lack of historical data, high interdependency, or a rapidly shifting landscape. Step 2 is the diagnostic assessment. If indicators show a prevalence of unknowns over knowns, shift out of a predictive mindset. Acknowledge you are in a complex environment where the path is not visible. Step 3 is selecting a response tactic. Filter your options for actions that prioritize empirical learning. Look for actions gathering more information, such as building a technical prototype or engaging stakeholders for immediate feedback. The guiding rule is simple. In a complex scenario, any response demanding full clarity before taking action is fundamentally flawed.
This diagnostic sequence maps the complexity described in the prompt to an iterative response. It ensures your decision-making aligns with the system's actual behavior.
Navigating complexity is not about removing uncertainty. It is about building the observational and operational capacity to thrive within it. Recognizing environmental indicators and avoiding the predictive planning trap is essential for mastering the business environment domain. In Episode 10, we will examine principle number 10, optimize risk responses. We will move from the systemic, structural challenges of complexity to the proactive management of specific threats and opportunities. Understanding both systemic complexity and specific risk responses allows a manager to move from reactive troubleshooting to resilient architecture. We'll see you in Episode 10.